Welcome to this edition of Gift of Light, where hints and clues on celebrating life with Jesus Christ will be given. One of America's most translated authors, Ellen White, has given us excellent counsel on education and related issues. Today's guest is Dr. Linda Cavanis, a professor at La Sierra University School of Education located in Riverside, California. Welcome, Linda. We're so happy to have you with us today.
I'm happy to be here.
What is happening in the field of education as it relates to neuroeducation, neurobiology, all of these terms that are creeping up? Perhaps you can give us a summary of what is happening to help us understand the importance of the body, the heart, the mind, some of those wonderful things.
There's lots going on in the field of education-related neuroscience. And this field, even though it is relatively new, is uncovering information that refers back to traditional educational practice that we've been doing all along, but we haven't known the scientific foundations that really support these practices that have been going on.
So there's an undergirding of the practice and the
Yes.
principles
Yes.
that help us to teach and prepare people to stand before other people.
That's right.
Now, does Ellen White have anything to add to this body of information?
Well, when I first began studying education-related neuroscience, as I read and I attended classes and I talked with others, I kept thinking, I've heard this information before. This information isn't that new. And so for my doctoral dissertation, I focused on that very question. Is there anything new coming from neuroscience to inform us? Well, of course there is new information, but that new information is helping to support what Ellen White specifically taught to educators or counseled to educators 100 years ago or more.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is.
Give us some examples.
Well, the one that I would love to talk to you about this morning, or whatever time of day it is when we're airing this program, is the connection that she made with the heart-brain science that is just now coming forward. Now, people often, when I first introduce this topic, they say heart-brain science. And isn't it enough for an educator to try to understand the brain? And now you're bringing in the heart. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, I met a gentleman, Dr. Earl Bakken. Dr. Bakken developed the first wearable heart pacemaker, and he co-founded Medtronics. It's a $45 billion company that produces implantable medical technologies. About every 5 seconds, this company that Dr. Bakken founded improves significantly or saves the life of someone around the planet.
Isn't that wonderful?
Isn't that a wonderful thing?
It certainly is.
And I was so impressed with Dr. Bakken and his vision for making our world a better place. And I had heard about some research on heart-brain connections when I was at UC Berkeley near San Francisco, California. This presentation that was made was talking about how the connections between the heart and the brain are such that the heart has a profound influence on the quality of cognition.
Oh my.
And not only did they talk about that, but they said that the heart and brain, the condition of their relating to each other causes an atmosphere that forms around us that communicates with others consciously and subconsciously. Now, when I first heard that, I thought, this is getting a little too new agey for me. And so I pushed away. But then as I was doing my dissertation, I kept coming across this information. And so I said to myself, because I was comparing in my dissertation study, I compared what Ellen White said to educators with what neuroscience is saying to educators. And so as I was collecting this information, I decided, well, I won't have to talk about this because I don't think Ellen White talked about this. And so if I did have to write about it, it wouldn't be very much. But to make sure that I stayed true to my study, I went to her writings and I put in some search words, atmosphere and heart, and there was another word, and I came up with all these hits. And these hits are all, you have to read all of them together.
Okay.
But this is what she says. She says, when our mind connects with the mind of God, light flashes into our mind, and that if our heart is open, the Holy Spirit will take residence there. And when that happens, a profoundly beneficial effect goes throughout the mind and the body. But she didn't stop there. She said, when this happens, an atmosphere forms around us that is beneficial to all who come near us.
Oh, wow.
And she says, if a spirit of evil or a spirit of selfishness is harbored in the heart, the atmosphere that surrounds us will be deleterious to those who come into our environment. She says, as that we inhale, the atmosphere of others, and that atmosphere that surrounds others impacts us and influences us.
I've heard people say that if you stay around toxic people, you become toxic after a while.
And I mean, that's exactly what I started to think about. And so, as I was doing this research, I happened to meet Dr. Paul Zak. Z-A-K is how you spell his last name. He's at Claremont Graduate University in Claremont, California. Dr. Zak is the chair, I believe he's chair of the economics department, and he also teaches neurology at Loma Linda University in Loma Linda, California, and at UCLA. He is a senior researcher.
UCLA in Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles.
All right.
So this man is a brilliant mind, and he's written books on this topic, but he has started a Center for Neuroeconomics Studies.
Wow.
Now people say, neuroeconomics?
Yes.
What does the brain have to do with economics?
Please.
And he says the stock market is driven by pleasure, choice, and trust. And he said we can measure trust because of a hormone that we call oxytocin. When our trust level goes up, so does our oxytocin level.
Oh, okay.
And when my oxytocin level goes up, and I am in this state of trustfulness and love, oxytocin is called the love or trust hormone. And so when that level goes up, somehow, we don't know completely how it happens, whether it's in our breath or extruding through the pores of our skin, we don't know, but it influences the atmosphere around us and other people. In each of us, we have in our olfactory sense a bulb that is highly sensitive to oxytocin.
Wow.
And so my oxytocin level, you pick up on it through your olfactory sense,
Okay.
and it causes your oxytocin level to go up.
That's good, as long as it's positive and going up.
Yes,
we
that's
don't need it
right.
to go the other way.
But unfortunately, we also think that negative emotion, just as you mentioned, negative emotion can also transfer across from one person to another.
Now, I know you had some slides showing this, and perhaps we may not be able to get them all, but did you want to tell the folk how they can go to the website and to see some of these
Yes,
slides?
you know, because some people, you know, they say, well, where is that? You know, I mean, where in Ellen White's writings did you find those statements? I mean, some of them are in manuscripts and so on that aren't easily accessible, and others are very accessible. But we have a website, and we'll put the website up for you so that you can see this. It's www.whiteestate.org
That's right.
/ and it's EGW ampersand, you know, for the
Yes.
and brain.
And brain.
And we have that for you. You can go and you can see these quotations so that you can see and read, and perhaps you will get the same impressions that I did.
Well, we are going to our break at this time, but I want you to know that you have given us some fascinating information to ponder, to reflect on. And when we come back from break, we want to delve into it even more, because to know that there's a magnetic field that goes out from us to around people, and that positive thoughts can affect people. And that's what the text says, as a person thinketh in his heart, so is he, and
Yes.
all of that. Well, we're going to break. We want to thank you for watching Gift of Light. Don't go away, because we want to show you exactly where those quotations are. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Gift of Light with Dr. Linda Cavanis, our guest today. Before going to break, we were discussing some very important statements made by one of America's most translated authors, Ellen White. And we want you to know that on the screen will be a website where you can find those statements, because they're very relevant for today. Linda, we want to thank you for delving into the deep, into the depth of knowledge and information, and digging up this information that enables us to understand the relationship, the psychosomatic relationship, the relationship between the heart and the mind, between the brain and the heart, all of these wonderful relationships. And perhaps you may want to tell us a little bit more about those relationships and about the heart and the neurons and so forth. We'll leave it in your hands to guide us.
Okay. Well, what I'd like to share with you next is some intriguing information that just recently has come forward in a new field of study called neurocardiology.
Neurocardiology?
Neurocardiology.
Now, we talked about neuroscience, neurobiology.
Yes.
Now there's a neurocardiology.
Neurocardiology.
Wow.
And neuroeconomics.
Neuroeconomics, I tell you. Boy, all right.
So this new field of focus is what Dr. Bakken has led me into. He gave to the Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland, Ohio, $17.3 million to develop the Bakken Heart-Brain Research Institute. And each year they conduct a Bakken Heart-Brain Summit. I think that's how they term it.
All right.
The Bakken Heart-Brain Summit. And I attend those sessions and learn about the new information that is coming forward on heart-brain connections. Most people are not aware that neurons have been discovered in the heart. Now, we have, in the past, we have talked about neurons in the brain because
Yes.
those are the cells in the brain that transfer information from one area of the brain to another.
That's correct.
But now they have located neurons in the heart. I have a picture to share with you. We can put it up on the screen now that shows a picture. Not very many people have seen these pictures. They were taken with a confocal microscope. And if you'll look, you'll see the large dark areas are collections of neurons. And then those lines that go from one dark area to another are the axons of neurons that are connecting or linking these communities of neurons. These neurons in the heart are what give us this idea that the heart has a little brain of its own. But that's not all. The individuals who study the heart and the brain often, a friend of mine, for instance, is a neurologist who does research on epileptic patients. And in her research, she will put an EKG on the heart, to record the heart, and an EEG on the brain so that she can record this data. And she says, now remember, these are epileptic patients
Correct.
that she's working
Yes.
with. She says a full 4 minutes before the brain seizes, the heart shows that the seizure is coming.
That is something.
This the heart also produces neurochemistry just like the brain does. And so as the heart is sensing that the seizure is coming on, it's likely that the neurochemistry is changing. And this may help us to understand, we talked earlier about how our state of neurochemistry can be detected by others.
Yes.
Well, dogs can be trained to know when an epileptic patient is about to seize, and they can give their owner a cue so that they can get into a safe position.
Wow.
And so all of this research on the heart-brain connection is helping us to understand that the heart has a little brain of its own, and it is a sensory organ. When I say that it has a little brain of its own, I want to qualify that.
All
It's
right.
estimated today that the neurons in the heart, the collections of neurons in the heart is about 40,000 collections of neurons, whereas the brain contains
Billions.
100 billion, and that is considered to be a conservative estimate
Wow.
of neurons in the brain. And so all of this, is helping us to understand this better. Now you stop me if you have a question,
All right, okay.
Because I'll just keep on
No,
going.
this is fascinating. We want to get it all as much as we can.
There's so much very interesting information. There are more connections going from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. And this balance that goes on between the heart and the brain is something that you can actually see in heart rate variability. Every beat of your heart is different from every other beat. It's like a snowflake. Snowflakes are all different. Well, your heartbeat has a sign. Every heartbeat is different from every other heartbeat. And when we study heart rate variability, we can look at that information and tell how closely your brain and your heart are communicating with each other.
Now, with all of this information in neurocardiology,
Yes.
is there anything to suggest about the other human emotions of love and joy?
Oh, yes, there certainly are lots of implications. I have a graphic to share with you on the effect of love and peace and joy in the heart. You'll see listed here a number of different positive benefits that come when, you know, love and peace and joy and trust and faith are present in our heart. It increases our health. You know, we commonly teach today that when these things are present in your heart, it boosts your immune system, your respiration, your digestion, your cardiac function, and your cognitive processing. This is all such, you know, valuable information for knowing as we relate to children in classrooms. But on the other hand, and we have another graphic that shows the effect of fear and apprehension and distrust, it actually lowers your natural killer cell levels and your immune function. And it raises the catecholamines that you produce if you're in a state of fear and apprehension and distrust.
Now you used a word there. What does that word?
Catecholamines?
Catecholamines.
Catecholamines are what cause you to get sticky blood platelets and clogging in the arteries and so on.
That can be damaging.
Yes, it's a you know, your neurochemistry is not in a good state when catecholamines, you know, high levels of catecholamines are present.
Wow.
And so this information that helps us to understand, you know, the correlation between the heart and the brain, that significant communication that's going on is very important. I have another graphic that I would like to share with you. It's a graphic that shows how the autonomic nervous system is represented. You know, in your autonomic nervous system, you have the sympathetic nervous system, which puts you on high alert. You know, it's like if your brain senses that something is going to threaten your life, your sympathetic nervous system will kick into gear big time. And then you have another system called the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic balances out the sympathetic nervous system. And that's in essence what is going on when we look at the balance. You know, the brain is like the survival organ. The heart is a feeling organ.
Okay.
In many instances, the heart, you know, when an individual is hooked up to an ECG and an EEG, in many instances, the heart responds to sensory data before the cortex in the brain does.
Oh my.
And so we know that there is this profound relationship between the heart and the brain. And I have another graphic that I would like to share with you. It's one a graphic of a man who was he had around him a heart halter because he had had some difficulty in the past with his heart. And so they put a heart halter around him for 24 hours. And he was riding in the car with his wife. And as we look at this, you'll see at the beginning, you know, and this is over a period of 1 hour. And you'll see at the beginning, his heart rate variability is down around 60 beats per minute. But look what happens when his wife says something that gets under his skin. His heart rate variability goes at to a very high level.
Wow.
And even when the argument stops for another 20 minutes, that neurochemistry from the anger and the frustration continues to be maintained. And I have another couple of graphics that I'd like to share with you as we finish up. The one of Josh and Mabel, a dog and his owner, and then if each of these were fitted with a heart halter, And the dog had a heart holder, and so did the boy. Let's go to the next graphic, and you can see when they were first fitted with the heart halter, they were in different rooms. In the middle, you see a very smooth pattern. They synchronized with each other. And then the boy left the room, and look what happened to
He became very nervous.
Very nervous again.
Linda, thank you so much for enabling us to get a clearer insight on the heart, the brain, and the mind.
Yeah.
We really thank you for coming by. Until next time, walk in the light, stay with the light.
This program was brought to you by the Hope Channel Network, thanks to the generous support of viewers like you. In the United States and Canada, call 1-888-4-HOPE-TV. That's 888-446-7388.